o'clock having arrived, I'd like to call to order the regular board meeting of the Vallecitos Water District for August 2nd, 2023. The pledge. I'd like to lead the pledge. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good. Roll call. And we are all present. Do we have any additions to the agenda?
We do not.
Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
And a second?
Seconded.
Please vote. And it passes unanimously. Do we have any public speakers?
Nobody in attendance, and there's nobody joining us remotely.
Very good. Consent calendar items. Does anybody have an item they wish to remove from the consent calendar? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Very good. Please vote. And it passes unanimously. Moving on to the action items. 2.1, Professional Service Agreement Amendment Number 2, Award for the Meadowlark Water Reclamation Facility Sodium Hycrolite Conversion Project.
Yeah, I'll just kick that off real quickly. So this is one of our more critical, safety-sensitive projects we're working on, and we do have a need to issue an amendment to our professional services agreement, and Ryan Morgan's going to walk you through this item. So take it away, Ryan.
Thank you, General Manager Poon. We're just setting up Zoom real quickly. We'll be some technical difficulties for the moment. Hold on.
What do you guys call this besides sodium hypochlorite? Is that what you call it, or is there a?
It's liquid bleach, household bleach, 12.5% solution.
It's a stronger bleach.
I mean, what do you guys call it at the plant?
Sodium hypochlorite.
Sodium hypochlorite,
Okay.
12.5%.
Sodium hypochlorite, 12.5.
Consultants could charge more when they call it sodium hypochlorite.
I was wondering, I didn't know if you guys.
It's actually not, it's the chemical, it's the chemical companies. Yeah, the longer the name, the more they can charge.
That's what I was wondering. All right, I didn't know if you guys had a little side nickname for it.
They say if you see Ed running, then you run. That's what they call it. That's what Ed said when he was on this tour. If you see me running, you better run too.
Okay.
Follow it, I got you.
Yep.
IT had money on it.
Recording in progress.
Anthony's got the disc, he's the.
Okay. We know the recording's working.
Good?
All right.
All right. Okay, all right. Sorry about that delay. Tonight's item for the PSA Amendment Number 2 award for the Meadowlark Sodium Hypochlorite Conversion Project. Just a quick reminder to the board, what is the project? The project consists of converting the existing gaseous chlorine storage and injection disinfection process at Meadowlark to a liquid-based chlorine solution storage and injection facility or sodium hypochlorite. The improvements will remove the most hazardous facility at the district, both to staff and the public, and relieve the district's requirement to maintain multiple safety programs and permits. The board authorized a PSA to Consor in October of 2021 for $422,000 for design and bid phase engineering services. Proof of concept testing was a critical field application of the project design to the proposed sodium hypochlorite dosing under various flow conditions at 3 locations at the plant. The first round was conducted April 6th to the 7th. The second round was in May, and the third round is yet to occur coming up in August, the 23rd to the 24th. The board authorized amendment number 1 to Consor in July of 2022 for $74,000 for this proof of concept field and laboratory testing at the location you see on the map, identified by the abandoned RBC area. All RBC is a prior process at Meadowlark, which is no longer there. It's been demolished, backfilled, it's been removed. So it's an open area, and that's where the temporary proof of concept facility has been located. For the CCT expansion project sequencing, the conversion project was initially scheduled for construction completion before the CCT expansion project construction. And the CCT project footprint is right here, identified on the map at where the chlorine contact tank call-out is. Early decommissioning of the chlorine gas at the existing chemical building, right here in the southwest corner of Meadowlark, is necessary because the existing the CCT expansion project construction will close Tertiary Road, right here, it's the access road, for future chlorine deliveries to the chemical building right here where the chlorine gas is stored. The existing chemical building requires structural retrofit to comply with seismic codes per the County Hazardous Materials Division by February of next year. So if the chlorine does not get out of the building before February 2024, we actually have to retrofit structurally the building to accommodate current seismic codes to allow for that hazardous material to be in that building. Additionally, state and federal grant funding of approximately $3.5 million was authorized 1 year ahead of schedule. This required resequencing and planning for both projects, as initially a temporary facility was investigated to be constructed at the abandoned RBC area here to allow for the conversion project to occur after the CCT expansion. However, staff estimates as this facility would be temporary in nature and sacrificial, staff estimates the design, construction, and future demolition of a temporary facility would exceed $1.5 million in the best case scenario at this location. It's with this, staff had determined that keeping the proposed location of the permanent facility at the chemical building down here was no longer feasible for these various reasons. Additionally, Meadowlark staff, they actually prefer the new RBC location for the permanent facility based on the success we experienced during the proof of concept testing. As a result, staff discussed phasing the projects to overlap in respective construction phases to mitigate these issues, with a conversion project occurring first while keeping the CCT project on schedule for the grant funding deadlines I mentioned earlier. Staff has requested a design amendment to Consor's initial PSA in July of this year and agreed with the approach scope and the not to exceed time and materials fee of $276,937 for the relocation of the new sodium hypochlorite permanent facility to the abandoned RBC area. Fiscal impact is identified on page 27 of your board packet. The project is budgeted in fiscal year 23-24 with a total amount of $5.61 million. Project funding is sourced 100% from reclaimed water funds. And as mentioned, addendums 1 and 2 are shown in the fiscal impact, currently bringing the total project value to date with estimating out the staff services through final design at $973,000. And it's with this the staff recommends the board of directors authorize the general manager to execute amendment number 2 under the current PSA with Consor in the amount of $276,937 for additional engineering design services for the Meadowlark conversion to sodium hypochlorite project. And if you have any questions, I can take those now.
Questions, anyone? Yes, Eric?
As a reminder for public, the use of bleach is much safer than chlorine.
Yes.
And
Yes.
could and will result in the elimination of potential emergency down the road. So this project is especially important.
Yeah. It's important for not only the community, but for our operations staff that has to deal with it, because it's an acute hazard. And really, as Engineer Ryan was explaining, we originally had the conversion to sodium hypochlorite, conversion to bleach, liquid bleach going first, and then the chlorine contact tanks going second. But the grant funding came in almost a year earlier than expected. Just the federal government released two immediate back-to-backs, and they have a deadline. We have roughly $3.5 million of grant funding that would be jeopardized if we don't get the chlorine contacts done first. But then we ran into that scenario, as Ryan mentioned, that if we leave the chlorine there and do nothing and just leave and live with the gas for another year, we have to spend well more than $276,000 or $270,000 retrofitting the existing building to meet the new seismic requirements because of that acute hazard. If we relocated a facility and then moved it back, it would cost $1.5 million. So we look at working with operations staff, we looked at all the different options to figure out what the best solution would be. And that's what we're hoping to bring to you today for approval.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Very simplistically, are we under budget or are we over budget on this?
Currently, we are on budget. We have not exceeded the current CIP budget amount. As AGM Gumpel kind of mentioned, escalations to the CIP budget would be more pronounced if we were spending construction dollars to build a temporary facility at this location to buy us time, essentially, in addition to the structural retrofits that would be required at the chemical building. The potential for going over budget in that scenario is much higher
Sure.
than spending design dollars now to make it right.
We're spending $276,000 to avoid spending $1.5 million later on down the road.
Yeah, or spending, roughly $500,000, or we don't know the exact number, but total on retrofitting a building that we're gonna demo in a year and a half.
And also the safety aspect,
Yep.
which has
Right.
been
But-
discussed for a long time around here.
But currently, to add more to your question, to answer it, is we are on budget, even with this amendment, based on the engineer's estimate. When we actually get a contractor on board, depending on the bid environment, we could be over on that. We've seen that in two of recent jobs that, Senior Engineer Morgan actually bid. On one job came in, our fail-safe line in the Buena Ridge came in almost $900,000 under the engineer's estimate, or 600 under. But then another job that the board just approved, it came in over the engineer's estimate. So depending on the bid environment, we'll see. Sorry, Montiel came in under the estimate, the fail-safe came in over, both pipelines, so I don't have a rhyme or reason for that. But based on the estimates right now, the best available, we're on budget.
Thank you.
All right.
I just wrote two keywords here. There's two things you said. One is proof of concept, or 75,000. What's a proof of concept mean?
Simply put, it's just to verify that what we are designing as the permanent facility is going to actually work. So we're replacing a process at the treatment plant, and it sometimes is not so simple as you might think. So the proof of concept test is just to basically verify by field testing in the worst conditions possible, the summer flows and the heat creates problems with the biological process, which is good for the sake of proof of concept testing under bad conditions. And so the good news is it's been going very well. And we expect a third test to also go well. We're going to expand the limits and the scope of our testing to actually look at where we dose at the CC, at the tanks, at the chlorine contact tanks versus in the secondary effluent channels. That's more information than you need to know, but it's just simply put, process will work when we go to turn the permanent facility on. We have assurance that we've done it before, we know it's gonna work.
And that's an outside agency we contract to do that?
No, it was a coordinated effort really between our engineer consort and internal forces. We procured the tank and the pump skid that was required. We have a pilot facility out there now on the RBC area. So staff is familiar with being there and doing work on it at that location where the permanent facility will be located.
Yeah, it was a team effort. Our staff assembled. It's basically pilot testing
Okay.
to make sure we're disrupting the existing process. The last thing we want to do is spend several $1,000,000 installing something and without making sure it works. Even if it works mathematically, we want to make sure it works in the field condition.
Gotcha.
So, and that's all we did with this. It was money well spent because we learned a lot during the process. They had to adjust the design from what the mathematics told us, basically on the original design profiles. And then basically, we know the worst, well, after August, we'll know the worst case as far as the toughest conditions for the plant.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. And then odor, I mean, I know we're converting from a gas to a liquid bleach, but I mean, if I spill a little bit of bleach in my house, I mean, that goes up my nose, I'm spent. Is this better? Do we do anything with odor control? Is there a danger for that?
No, not for the liquid bleach at all. I mean, it does smell like bleach, you're right, but it is in a sealed system, sealed pumps, and it's injected into the actual effluent or, the recycled water effluent or, before the recycled water, it becomes recycled water, and also a couple other spots in the plant. So when it's being injected, when it's being mixed, there is a bleach smell to it, but it's not noxious. It's not to the point where it actually, to me, it smells clean. So,
Okay,
so.
it's a good, clean
But-
smell. It's like fabuloso, I like that.
But on the alternate, the chlorine gas is actually lethal to life.
Yeah, you don't wanna smell that.
Well, that's what, I mean, I know we're converting, but just it's still,
Yeah.
right.
As,
Will it help with the other odors at the plant?
as someone who lives in this neighborhood, I can attest that there's no odors.
There's no odor, I mean, that's why I'm wondering, that's why I'm surprised, you guys do such a great job.
Yeah, it does.
Scrubbers, right?
Yeah, it's we have an active overscrub, and basically all the white pipes that you see are actively drawing in foul air and scrubbing them before they get released to the atmosphere because we're
Right.
surrounded by homes.
And you do a great job, no, they work great, I know.
It's,
Okay, no,
uh,
thank you for the good presentation, thank you.
All right. Any further questions? I would entertain a motion to approve item 2.1 for professional services, amendment number 2 of the Meadowlark Water Reclamation Facility.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Very good. Vote, please. And it passes unanimously.
Thank you for the presentation.
Very good. Moving on to reports, General Manager.
Yeah, I've got 5 items, but they should be pretty quick. So tomorrow we have a bid opening on Montiel Lift Station. That's a big project to replace what was supposed to have been a temporary lift station built in, I think, 1986. So it's coming up on 40 years old. It was supposed to last for 5 and got our money's worth out of it. So we're looking forward to hopefully getting some low bids in there. Next item, we're gonna be doing some night work tomorrow, starting at 6 o'clock. It's on Rancho Santa Fe Road near Villa Alondra. It's gonna be taking flows that usually get pumped from the Lake San Marcos lift station down to Meadowlark. We have to divert them up away from because we have the bypass line, the emergency bypass line, we need to dry it out. So we can't have the flows going that way, so we have to reverse the flow and bring it up to lift station number 1. So we have to get into Rancho Santa Fe Road, so we'll be disrupting traffic, but it'll be in the evening. So it shouldn't be, I assume we've coordinated everything with the city.
That's just one night, and it's tomorrow night?
Yeah, so it's tomorrow night, starting, I think it's 6 PM?
6 PM till 6 AM.
Till 6 AM the following, so 6 PM Thursday night to 6 AM Friday morning. On August 21st, we have, I believe, 2 interns starting, one through the County Water Authority's intern program, and then we have our next cycle of the Palomar intern starting, so that's great. Tonight, we have night 1 of the Water Smart Landscaping classes right down in our training room, so when the meeting's done, if you want to wander down there, you can take a look at that. And the last thing, just to give you a heads up, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but we're going to be embarking on an employee satisfaction survey starting August 8th. And I think the employees get like 2 weeks, and then management will look through the results and then try to use the results to make this an even better workplace. So
Very good.
just want to let you know those 5 things.
Will we have a presentation of the results?
Yeah, we certainly can do that. Give management some time to figure out an action plan, and then we'll report out what we heard and what we're going to do about what we heard.
All right, very good. Legal counsel.
Thank you. I'm going to have James pass out just my written general counsel report. This is based on Tiffany's request that we talk about Lake San Marcos. I'm not going to go into full detail, work with AGM Compel and Glenn to do the substance of what the going forward looks like, but I thought I would provide this to the board to kind of provide you with a little brief history of what got us here. First of all, Lake San Marcos, I think as everyone knows, is a privately owned lake. It's an impound that was done back in the 50s based on a license and permit from the state. Citizens Development Corporation has the permit, which authorizes them to impound water from San Marcos Creek into the lake and to use it for irrigation. Back in 2011, concerns arose relative to the quality of water in the lake. Vallecitos and a number of other agencies coalesced into what was the Lake San Marcos Work Group, and they entered into a participation agreement to basically agree how they would be funding dealing with the lake. As part of that, Vallecitos has a 20% cost share interest under the participation agreement. You can see the other agencies are involved there. Essentially, everyone has a 20% contribution. 40% is provided to San Marcos, who then farms out half of it to the city of Escondido. That same year, the regional board issued an investigative order relative to the lake, which kind of kicked off what then resulted in litigation that was filed by CDC. On the second page, you see CDC filed a civil action against Vallecitos and other entities in district court. The district was represented by Neil Myers and his firm under our JPIA. You can see the claims that were asserted there. CDC was, essentially everyone's pointing the finger at everyone else for the cause of the problem at the lake. Vallecitos also filed counterclaims in that case. In 2020, Vallecitos entered into a settlement agreement with CDC. I think the first settlement in that case was with Hollandia, who got out. I think we were second, and then it eventually followed up in all of the parties contributing to a settlement trust fund. Vallecitos' contribution to that trust fund was $1 million. There is now a permanent settlement trust fund. Those funds are used to deal with the treatment, et cetera, issues at the lake. The current administrator of that fund is a man named Timothy Gallagher. They have meetings. We have a consultant who attends and monitors those meetings, and there's continuing regional board activity. And as I indicated on that last point, the regional board is still involved. They're overseeing the activities going on there. All of the parties, we get an annual assessment from the regional board for their costs. We got our estimate letter at the end of June, and their estimate for our costs this year is about $43,000. They bill us at an average cost, well, they bill everybody for their staff time, and an average cost of $215 per hour. Their estimate this year is based on 200 hours. Last year, they spent about 70 hours relative to our work. Some of these costs may be passed back through the trust fund. My intention was, at some point in the future, working out with James, to come back and provide to you an explanation as to what's going on through the trust fund and what their programs are. I know you had a question relative to that. They're currently doing a pilot aeration project over there that they're monitoring the results of. And then they've got some other future programs that would go into place. And that's what the regional board is overseeing with respect to the activities at Lake San Marcos. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I hope that provides a little background relative to how we got to where we are today, but thank
Any
you.
questions from the board? Yes.
Yeah, as far as the regional board's activities, is there some future liability? I don't know if we can discuss it in open session.
Yeah, we can discuss the extent of that potential future liability, but in open session, I can essentially tell you, when settling the civil case, we resolved the civil issues. We didn't and couldn't resolve the ongoing potential regulatory issues that could come up with the regional board. I think the hope is that this trust fund and everything else solves those issues, and the regional board doesn't see fit to take any additional actions. But
When will we know?
you know when you know, right? No,
That's what I
I don't
thought.
know, Craig. I don't have an estimate on when it is. I mean, I couldn't even project as to when that might be.
Okay.
So.
So on that, so when we talk about continual remedial measures, right now they're just indefinitely?
Did you want to speak to it?
No, so the,
I mean, like that 45K a year that we, I mean, does that
so
go
the-
on
The
indefinitely?
the work group, the original work group, the 20% split, that's mainly, and unless it changed through a settlement, and please correct me if I'm wrong, for staff time for the regional board. The actual work that consultants are doing, the big ticket items that I don't know what the estimate was, but at one point it was $150 million for full remediation. The district's portion was only $1 million on that one, from the civil standpoint. So from that one, from the civil side, the district is, so to speak, out. From regulatory, as we spoke, we can't predict that. But the work group agreement and with the regional board is basically a 20% split on the time until, it almost feels like perpetuity, but I'm
That's what I'm
sure,
saying,
yeah.
until, that was the question.
Until the lake is clean and no longer impaired, is my understanding.
I mean, they could bleed this forever.
They could. I think it will, like everything, peak and diminish once they get through the pilot program and begin to show that it's effective, and it'll be ongoing treatment, et cetera. But the regional board's oversight and involvement in it should diminish over time.
So when you say they, who's cleaning? Who's doing the remediation? Do they need help from Vallecitos to expedite that?
No, no.
So when you say they, who's doing the
Well,
cleanup?
it's CDC is through their consultants and through the trust fund are doing the cleanup because it's their lake, it's their
I mean,
problem,
There's no
so.
incentive for them to clean it up. I mean, shoot, if they're getting,
Yeah, right now, they're doing their proof of concept, they're doing their pilot testing, and that's all they're doing, and they already did a round, and the results were not favorable. And that's kind of where they sit currently, as far as.
so there's no incentive for them to expedite anything.
Well, there's a lot of incentive
Yeah.
because if they don't fix the problem on their own, the regional board will force a fix, issue orders, et cetera.
But they're getting, all right, there. But they got the funding from other sources, from us, Escondido, from City of San Diego.
Yeah, they got a funding through the settlement to resolve the problem. It's in
Right.
trust to resolve the problem, so it's not money they can take and go to Mexico with, so to speak, but, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
How about the
Thank you, very interesting.
unrelated issue of the dam? And the CDC is the owner of record, I believe. Is there a big issue out there with repairing the dam or replacing it?
I don't know if that's been resolved. My understanding is the CDC turned in maybe 2018, maybe 2017, because there's no recreational permit, as dam was only for impoundment for agricultural use. Obviously, it's used for recreation. So the state granted the amendment retrospectively, so they basically forgave them for using it as a recreation lake for however many years since the late 50s. That being said, there was a evaluation of the dam itself, and I have no idea what the results were because they were not made public. Or if they're made public, at the time they were made public, they may be public now. So I just kind of lost track of it.
Yeah, I mean, dam safety was going through a lot of these facilities, Rancho, and then all the way up to 15, there's one on Temescal
I would assume
Creek.
it got a big ticket repair,
Right.
as most dams.
But, yeah, I don't know, check, but I don't know.
And for those directors who weren't on the board when we entered into that settlement agreement, so we paid $1 million, but I don't think any of it came out of our pockets. We discovered some legacy insurance carriers. They paid the majority of it, and Aqua JPIA picked up a chunk, and I don't think we ended up, and Wes, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think anything came out of our coffers directly.
No.
So that was a good find to uncover
Yeah.
those legacy insurance policies.
Thank you for putting this together. I think, you know, when I was walking that neighborhood and chatting with folks that live there, you know, Lake San Marcos is turning over. You know, more and more families are moving in and families are moving out. And so the history of this issue is not, you know, the institutional knowledge of it is not well known anymore. And, you know, people think, when they see the lake, they think, well, that's Vallecitos, so, you know, then we get calls, right? So I think this really sheds a light on the history of it and Vallecitos' responsibility. Are we going to see any more education about this in an upcoming meeting, or do you feel like, I mean, I feel like this is a great backgrounder.
My intent, it's obviously up to you all, but was, the only other piece would be to provide you with more detail regarding what the actual treatment plan is going forward under the trust or otherwise. And we can bring in, you know, the technical people to do that, to provide that, or, you know, I think the other issue is, you know, we may schedule a closed session to discuss with you the potential exposure relative to the regional board with its open position.
I think that latter would be a great idea. And I'm sort of outcomes focused because, you know, when we do get those calls, when we do get those questions, it's not very satisfying to someone who lives on the lake that can't recreate on the lake to say, oh, well, you know, Vallecitos has limited involvement. So I wonder if there's a way for us to, and maybe we loop in Chris Robbins about this as well, but just sort of have you know, some talking points and some ideas about ways that we can communicate with folks to help them understand the situation a little bit better and, you know, the limits of our liability and limits of our involvement, but still, you know, provide our customers with, you know, maybe some information or some action items where they could follow up with the people that are involved.
Yeah, we can work with
Yep, we'll set
Glenn and
something
them.
up.
I mean, our involvement is, I mean, we have nothing to do with the lake. The only reason we were in the litigation is because our sewer facilities are tributary to the watershed, et cetera, so.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And this is public information, correct? Okay, thank you.
Anything further?
Nothing further, thank you.
Thank you. Water Authority.
Yeah, the Water Authority Board held a regular July board meeting on July 27th. All the items were routine, so I don't plan on going into any detail on any of them, so that's my report.
Very good. Encina wastewater, we haven't had our capital committee meeting, and board meeting is the end of the month. Standing committees? I don't think we've had any. Directors' reports on meetings, conferences, seminars? No, don't think we did that either. Quarterly board expenses, I think it's in your packet. And future agenda items.
Have two quick comments.
Yes,
One, I do encourage there to be some activity from the Finance Committee to consider what we've talked about in the past. The 10-year yield reached 4% today. So even with long-term money, we can be doing a lot better.
good.
And the other thing is South Lake San Marcos. I've had a lot of family visiting over the past month, and they have absolutely loved South Lake San Marcos. So thank you for all of the staff's work in making that such a wonderful, successful, beautiful location. Thank you.
Very good. Yes, Anything else?
I had one
Oh, yes.
I heard somewhere that we got a AAA rating. Was that discussed at the last meeting? I wasn't here for the last meeting.
Better than the US government.
I just want to say
You heard that, huh?
belated congratulations from me. So that's great news.
Yeah, we had our annual surveillance recently, and while I was actually on vacation, I got a notification that we were upgraded from a AA+ to a AAA. So quite the accomplishment. We've been wanting to get that since, I mean, we were upgraded last in 2013, I believe, to a AA+. So it's been 10 years trying to get a AAA, and we finally got it, so.
Great job.
Very-
Congratulations to everybody.
Great job. Anything further? See none? We are adjourned.